Now, if we take only biotic component and we are responsible for making a subdivision of biotic component. Now, this subdivision of biotic component is referred to as community. If we are taking ecosystem is what? Ecosystem is the fundamental unit of biosphere. It is the fundamental unit of biosphere. And if we are taking only, and there are three components of ecosystem also, biotic, abiotic and energy component. So, if we are taking only biotic component and making a subdivision of that component, that would be referred to as community. Within an ecosystem, we can see there would be different levels of community. Suppose if we are taking a forest ecosystem, there would be a community of animals which would be present on the surface. For example, lion, tigers, leopards would be forming a community of their own. There would be a community which would be present in the at the canopy of trees. Clear? Now, there would be a community which would be present in the water bodies. And a specific community of a certain area would be referred to as population also. But when we are talking about community, the members of the community would be performing certain functions. And these functions which the member of community perform is referred to as what? It is referred to as niche. These functions which the members of the community perform. So, the members of community are performing certain functions. So, these functions which are for their own maintenance. So, the functions which the members of the community perform for their own maintenance would be called as niche. And the functions can be many things. It can be, suppose the function is food accumulation. You would have seen that birds connecting small grains from one for feeding their infants. So, this kind of function is food accumulation. So, this would be called as what? This would be called as trophic niche. So, if the function is food accumulation, this would be called as trophic niche. If suppose the function is procreation means generation of new ones, then it would be called as what? It would be referred to as reproductive niche. And if suppose the function is maintenance of dwelling place, then we can see that if the function is maintenance of dwelling place, then it is called as what? It is referred to as habitat niche. So, we can see that niche can be of three types. It can be what? It can be trophic niche if the function is food accumulation. It can be habitat niche if the function is maintenance of dwelling place, and it can be also reproductive niche if the function is what? If the function is procreation, that is reproduction as such. So, reproductive niche, so it would be the function is procreation. So, there are three types of niche, but there is a principle also which is called as compulsory exclusion principle. And compulsory exclusion principle means that no two members of the community, when we are talking about compulsory exclusion principle, it means that no two members of the community would be sharing the same niche. No two members of the community would be sharing the same niche, have the same niche. Okay, fine. Fine, okay. Now, let's move ahead. Now, there are some principles of ecology on the basis of which UPSC is responsible for framing questions. One principle of ecology on the basis of which UPSC frames question is called as what? Is called as homeostatic principle. That you have to know. Homeostatic principle. And associated with this is what? Associated with this is resilience characteristic. Homeostatic principle, and associated with this is resilience characteristic. Now, what does it mean? What does it mean? See, ecopene is what? Ecopene is nothing but the ecological sphere of a habitat. Clear? And ecotype stands for what? When we are talking about ecopene is nothing but ecological sphere. For example, when you are talking about biosphere or ecological sphere, so a definite ecology would be having a sphere of its own, which is called as ecopene. Clear? Yes. Ecotone we'll discuss just now. See, just now. I'm coming to ecotone. If suppose, if we are saying that this is suppose one ecosystem, if suppose we are saying on one side is one ecosystem, this is ecosystem 1 A, and this is ecosystem B. Now, when we are talking about ecotone, please put the right word only, then we can answer. Now, when we are talking about ecotone, ecotone is called as what? It is called as the demarcation zone between two ecosystems. Clear? Ecotone would be called as. Now, when we are talking about ecotone, ecotone means that it is the demarcation zone between. Now, when we are talking about ecotone, we are saying that ecotone is a demarcation zone between two ecosystems. So, first thing about ecotone is what? That it is a demarcation zone between two ecosystems. Clear? For example, suppose mangrove area is an ecotone because it's a demarcation zone between the terrestrial ecosystem and the marine ecosystem. So, that would be called as ecotone. Second thing is what? It's not only a demarcation zone, but we can see also that this area, that is ecotone, would be also called as transitional zone. And why transitional zone? Because the characteristic of one ecosystem in this area would be enhancing, but that of the other would be reducing. So, that's called as transitional zone. Clear? Ecotone would be referred to as also transitional zone. For example, suppose in mangrove vegetation area, you can see the soil is saline in nature. Soil is saline in nature. So, you can see the characteristic of one ecosystem is reducing and that of the other would be enhancing. Now, the third characteristic is what? As far as ecotone is concerned. Now, this would be a zone of competition. And why zone of competition? Because the members of two ecosystems would be struggling hard for their survival, would be fighting with each other for their survival. So, it would be a zone of competition. And also we can see that as far as ecotone is concerned, this area registers high ecological productivity. This area registers high ecological productivity. हाई इकोलॉजिकल प्रोडक्टिविटी का मतलब है क्या कि द रेट एट विच फोटोसिंथेसिस इज परफॉर्म, जिस दर से प्रकाश संश्लेषण होता है. सो दैट वुड बी कॉल्ड एज हाई इकोलॉजिकल प्रोडक्टिविटी. सो दिस एरिया registers a very high ecological productivity. And not only this area is also famous for biodiversity. But then if we are talking about one ecosystem, this is the one ecosystem and suppose this is the another ecosystem. So, the margin of two ecosystem is overlapping in ecotone. So, when the margin of two ecosystem overlaps in ecotone, what happens? The localized condition in this area is favorable for development of a large number of species. Now, if it is favorable for development of large number of species, then this phenomena is called as what? This phenomena is called as edge effect. So, we are saying that the margin of two ecosystem overlap in this area, and as such we can see the localized condition in this area is favorable for development of a large number of species. So, this phenomena is called as what? This phenomena is called as edge effect. Clear? So, high population would be there definitely. So, this phenomena would be called as edge effect as such. But to relate edge effect with edge species would be wrong. We cannot say that the species which are present in these areas would be called as edge species. Clear? So, to relate edge effect with edge species would be wrong, because some of the books what they have written erroneously, that the species which are present in this area are edge species. Wrong. When we are talking about edge species stand for what? It stands for evolutionary, distinct, and globally endangered, So, when we are saying that evolutionary, distinct and globally endangered are edge species, it means that they are the only surviving member of their genus on the planet Earth. Clear? So, they happen to be the only surviving member of their genus on the planet Earth. For example, elephant is an edge species because the members of its family are no more. Mammoth is no more. So, it would be called as edge species. But to say that edge species is present in the areas where edge effect is reflected is 100% false. Clear? So, edge species is a different types of species. But in environment, we have to know some other types of species also before beginning with homeostatic principle, ecological productivity, etc. Fine. So, we can see that there are some types of species also. For example, there is a type of species we know that that's an edge species, that's evolutionary distinct and globally endangered. So, it is the only surviving member of their genus on the planet Earth. But there's another type of species which is called as keystone species. Now, keystone species means that these species are responsible for maintaining the structure of the ecosystem. Clear? Eutrophication. Let me come to eutrophication. Eutrophication is a process through which deposition of sediment takes place in the water bodies, which is not only responsible for aging of water bodies, but also responsible for enhancing its nutrient content. We'll come to eutrophication. Don't worry about it. Chandrasekhar. Fine. So, we can see that another type of species is called as keystone species. Now, keystone species are those species which are responsible for maintaining the structure of ecosystem. They maintain the structure of ecosystem. And as far as keystone species is concerned, not only the structure of the ecosystem is maintained, but also we can see that keystone species can be both animals and plants. And when we are saying structure of the ecosystem is maintained, it means that if you remove these species from this area, the structure of the ecosystem would be getting disrupted. तो अगर उस स्पीशी को हटाओगे वहाँ से इकोसिस्टम से, तो स्ट्रक्चर इकोसिस्टम का डिसरप्ट हो जाएगा. सो दैट्स कॉल्ड एज कीस्टोन स्पीशी. There are many examples. जैसे मान लो in Madagascar there are lemurs. Lemurs are just like monkeys which are present in large numbers in Madagascar. They are just like monkeys. They are present in large numbers in Madagascar. But the seeds of some vegetation in Madagascar has to pass through the digestive tract of lemur in order to germinate. The seeds of some vegetation in Madagascar has to pass through the digestive tract of lemur in order to germinate. Now, it means that if you remove lemurs from Madagascar, what will happen? If you are responsible for removing lemurs from Madagascar, see, please, eutrophication will come when we will discuss dead water zones. Let us come to dead water zone. Fine. If you mingle all these things, then sometimes, now here if you say eutrophication, another will talk about air pollution now. So, let us go in a sequence as such. I'll come to flagship and umbrella species. Just wait. Now, when we are talking about keystone species, it can be both animals and plants. Now, animals means what? That we have cited the example of lemurs in Madagascar. That some of the seeds of vegetation which is present in Madagascar has to pass through the digestive tract of lemur in order to germinate. has to pass through the digestive tract of lemur in order to germinate. It means that if you are responsible for removing from here, if you are responsible for removing lemurs from Madagascar, the entire ecosystem would be disrupted. Or suppose we take the example of a plant. In the temperate area, there is a plant which is called as the fig plant. Fig plant. And this fig plant has stony seeds. Stony, not fruits, seeds, but stony fruits, hard-shelled fruits. So during the favorable condition, they won't be responsible for, the monkeys won't be responsible for feeding on these fruits because they are better option for them to eat. But we can see during unfavorable conditions, the monkeys would be feeding on these fruits for their survival. So ensuring the survival of monkeys in adverse condition is the fig plant. Maintaining the structure of the ecosystem is the fig plant. Henceforth, it would be called as what? It would be called as keystone species. So keystone species are responsible for maintaining the structure of ecosystem. There can be both animals and plants. And also we can see that if you remove these species from the ecosystem is going to get disrupted. The ecosystem is going to get disrupted. So they are called as keystone species. Now there is a term which is called as umbrella species. If suppose I am responsible for taking conservation initiative for one species. Now in protecting or in taking the conservation initiative for one species, I am responsible for protecting the habitat of that species. Clear? So if the habitat of one species is protected, what happens automatically is the habitat of other species also would be protected, getting protected in turn. So the main species here would be referred to as umbrella species. I repeat once more that if suppose I am taking a conservation initiative for protecting one species as such, but in protecting the habitat of one species, the habitat of other species are also getting protected in turn. Then the main species here would be referred to as what? It would be referred to as umbrella species, because under the ambit of this umbrella species, the other species also got protected in turn. For example, tiger can be an umbrella species, lion can be an umbrella species. But if we are using the symbol of one species for conservation initiative, while the purpose is to symbol of one species for conservation initiative, while the purpose is, the objective is to protect other species as well, then it would be called as what? It would be called as flagship species. Which species? Whose symbol is being used. Clear? So if suppose we are responsible for using the symbol of one species for conservation initiative, but our intention is to protect other species as well, then the species whose symbol is used would be called as what? It would be referred to as flagship species. Clear? Flagship species. When there are some species, yes, Ram Ram. Now there are some species also which is called as what? Which is referred to as indicator species. Indicator species का मतलब क्या है? That they would be helping us either to identify an ecosystem, इससे इकोसिस्टम की पहचान होगी, and also it would be helping us to know about the condition. Clear? So not only identification of an ecosystem would be done, but also we can know about the condition of the ecosystem also. Clear? Ecosystem also through indicator species. For example, suppose in old habitat, spotted owl can be seen. So when we see spotted owl, we come to the conclusion that this is old habitat. But the problem in this is what? That sometimes spotted owl can be present in some other habitat also. Frequently they are present in old habitat, but sometimes they can be present in other habitat also. So we can see that as far as use of indicator species is concerned, we cannot conclude only on the basis of indicator species. There should be some other benchmarks, there should be some other parameters also used for this purpose. The conclusion cannot be drawn on the basis of indicator species only. Clear? The conclusion cannot be drawn on the basis of indicator species only. Is that clear? Fine. So let's know about that also. Now, next type of species, and also indicator species are known used for the purpose of knowing about the condition of the ecosystem. For example, suppose if you see Gangetic dolphins always would be moving in the mid of the river. Why? Because the contaminated water in the mid of the river is less. It never moves in the banks. So the movement of Gangetic dolphins would be reflective of what? It would be reflective of the condition of the ecosystem as such. So there are few species that you have to know. One is edge species, which is evolutionary distinct and globally endangered, which are the only surviving members of their genus on the planet Earth. Second is what? Second is what? Second is umbrella species, keystone species. Keystone species are those species which are responsible for maintaining the structure of the ecosystem. They can be both plants and animals. So they are called as keystone species. They would be referred to as keystone species. They can be both plants and animals. And third is called as what? Third is called as the umbrella species. Suppose we are responsible for taking conservation initiative for one species, and in protecting the habitat of other species, the habitat of other species also protected gets in turn. So in protecting the habitat of that species, the habitat of other species also gets protected in turn. The main species here would be called as umbrella. And then we have discussed what is called as what? Now see, गंगा डॉल्फिन आई हैव मेंशन. वाई गंगा डॉल्फिन आई हैव मेंशन कि गंगा के डॉल्फिन को देखेंगे जिसे स्थानीय भाषा में कहते हैं सॉस. नाउ गैंजेटिक डॉल्फिन्स ऑलवेज मूव इन द मिड ऑफ द रिवर. So they are reflecting what? They are reflecting the condition of water in the mid of the river, because Gangetic dolphins would be always and always seen in those areas where water is less contaminated. Clear? Where water is less contaminated. Yes, Patna. And there is a conservation initiative also taken for protection of Gangetic dolphins as such. And I have discussed that indicator species can be used for knowing about the condition of the ecosystem and also identifying an ecosystem. And then I have discussed edge species. But in UPSC you can see that sometimes देखो यूपीएससी में क्या है ना कि कभी कभी वो क्वेश्चंस आपको पूछते हैं इकोलॉजिकल प्रिंसिपल्स पर भी. 3 इकोलॉजिकल प्रिंसिपल्स आपको जानने हैं. दैट इज इंपॉर्टेंट. वन इज कॉल्ड एज व्हाट? वन इज कॉल्ड एज होम्योस्टैटिक प्रिंसिपल. दूसरे को कहते हैं क्या? इकोलॉजिकल प्रोडक्टिविटी. और तीसरे को कहते हैं क्या? द थर्ड इज कॉल्ड एज प्लांट सक्सेशन. सो वी हैव टू कवर अप दीज 3 प्रिंसिपल्स ऑल्सो एज सून एज पॉसिबल. एंड जस्ट आई विल बी बायलिंगुअल. ठीक है, मैं हिंदी में भी बोलूँगा. ठीक है, कहीं कहीं पर हिंदी में भी बोलता हूँ और आप उसे समझिए. जस्ट रिमेंबर दोज थिंग्स. सो आई विल ट्राई टू बी बायलिंगुअल ऑल्सो. फाइन, लेट्स स्टार्ट. Now see, there are 3 principles of ecology that you have to know. And one principle is called as what? One principle is called as homeostatic principle. And along with it is a characteristic which is called as resilience characteristic. Clear? Along with it is a characteristic which is called as resilience characteristic. Now homeostatic principle means what? Homeostatic, just understand, because this is a mains question. So in preliminary examination only the concept can be asked. Homeostatic principle or resilience characteristic is what? Each and every ecosystem would be having a self-regulatory mechanism of its own. Clear? Each and every ecosystem would be having a self-regulatory mechanism of its own. And there would be an inbuilt self-regulatory mechanism in the ecosystem by virtue of which it is able to maintain its internal condition despite external disturbances. Clear? So if suppose any external changes takes place, the internal conditions within the ecosystem would be maintained. And this characteristic of the ecosystem, this principle under which this is maintained, I am saying that each and every ecosystem would be having a self-regulatory mechanism of its own, and the internal conditions within the ecosystem would be maintained despite external changes. Now this characteristic of the ecosystem through which it adjusts it is responsible for adapting to maintain the internal condition would be called as what? It would be called as nothing but the resilience characteristic, and the principle under which it is determined would be called as homeostatic principle. So the principle is called as homeostatic principle and the characteristic would be called as resilience characteristic. But we can see that the resilience characteristic of an ecosystem can be exhibited to a certain level only. Clear? Resilience characteristic of an ecosystem can be exhibited to a certain level only. And that level is called as what? It is called as resilience limit. It's referred to as resilience limit. So, if suppose the nature of external change, or the magnitude of external change, we are saying that if the nature of external change or the magnitude of external change is such that the resilience limit of the ecosystem is surpassed, then it is at that juncture that environmental degradation takes place. देखो हिंदी में भी मैं समझा देता हूँ. सभी इकोसिस्टम जो हैं would be having a self regulatory mechanism. उनमें ये कैरेक्टरिस्टिक है कि जो आंतरिक व्यवस्था है उसको बरकरार रखेंगे. Suppose if external changes also take place, they maintain the internal condition. Clear? अगर external change भी हो रहा है तब भी वो internal condition को maintain करेंगे. So this characteristic of the ecosystem is called as what? It is called as homeostatic principle. The principle is called as homeostatic principle, and the characteristic of ecosystem for this purpose would be called as resilience characteristic. जैसे मान लो when winter comes, जैसे winter आता है, on the skin of animals hairs would be growing in large numbers. So on the skin of animals, hairs would be growing in large numbers. Now this hair is acting as what? It is acting as an insulator. And why insulator? Because the external condition is what? The external condition is that the temperature has reduced. So this would be acting as an insulator for the external condition that temperature has reduced. So this characteristic of ecosystem would be called as resilience characteristic. This adjustment that the ecosystem does is called as resilience characteristic. But if suppose the magnitude of external change, मान लो कि दायरा पैमाना है उसका, magnitude of external change or the nature of external change is such that the resilience limit of the ecosystem is surpassed. उसकी मैग्नीट्यूड को देखो, एक्सटर्नल चेंज को, या फिर उसके नेचर को देखो, सच दैट द resilience limit of the ecosystem is surpassed. It is at that juncture that environmental degradation takes place. It is at that juncture that environmental degradation would be taking place. Yes, hibernation and estivation are also homeostatic principle or just some short-term adjustments, and that's for the purpose of maintaining the internal conditions within the ecosystem. Fine, that's for the purpose of maintaining internal conditions within the ecosystem. So that's called as homeostatic principle and it is called as resilience characteristic. Now, what we can see is that as far as the second principle of ecology is concerned, the second principle of ecology is called as what? It's called as plant succession. When you talk about succession, succession is the process through which, when you are talking about succession, succession is the process through which includes all ecological changes through which species are getting established in an area. Succession is a process which includes all ecological changes by virtue of which species get established in an area. But when we are talking about establishment of animal species, so that would be called as animal succession. Establishment of vegetation, so that would be called as plant succession. So when we define plant succession, we can say that plant succession is a process which includes all ecological changes by virtue of which vegetation would be getting established in an area. So if suppose plant succession takes place, there are two types of plant succession that you have to know. First type of plant succession is called as what? It is called as primary plant succession. Primary plant succession. And second would be called as secondary plant succession. secondary plant succession. So first is primary plant succession and second would be called as secondary plant succession. Now, when we are talking about primary plant succession, it means what? It means that if suppose there is no vegetation in that area from the very beginning, the establishment of vegetation in that area would be called as what? It would be called as primary plant succession. And the type of vegetation which is established in that area would be called as what? It would be called as primary vegetation. So, the type of vegetation would be called as primary vegetation and the type of succession would be called as what? It would be called as primary plant succession. Primary, if there was no vegetation in that area, then the establishment of vegetation would be called as primary plant succession. But if suppose the vegetation was present but has been lost temporarily, so there is temporary loss of vegetation in that area, which can be due to wildfires, which can be due to droughts. So, establishment of vegetation in that area, establishment of vegetation in that area would be called as what? It would be called as secondary plant succession. Clear? So, we are talking about that if there is temporary loss of vegetation, and then establishment of vegetation takes place in that area, it would be called as secondary plant succession. But establishment of vegetation does not take place instantaneously. Clear? Establishment of vegetation in an area won't take place instantaneously. It would be taking place in a sequential manner. So, the sequential manner through which vegetation is getting established in an area is referred to as what? It is referred to as serrae. The sequence in which vegetation is getting established in an area is referred to as what? It is referred to as serrae. And we can see that there are three stages in serrae. The first stage is called as what? It is called as stage of pioneer plants. So, see, here they have asked you question in UPSC. So, the first stage is called as stage of pioneer plants. Now, here we can see that there are large boulders present, and in these large boulders, in the fissures of rocks, small vegetation would be creeping. ये जो है ना large rocks, boulders, इसमें small vegetation उभर कर आएंगे. Now, all these vegetation, these kind of small vegetation would be responsible for what? It would be responsible for broadening the fissures. It would be responsible for broadening the fissures. It would be not only responsible for broadening the fissure, it would be also initiating soil formation. It is responsible for broadening the fissures. It is also responsible for initiating soil formation. Yes, those who do not control their body temperature by their own undergo hibernation and estivation to sustain from unfavorable condition. That's true. Now we can see soil formation. Now, there are two examples of it, and the examples include lichens and mosses. So, there are two examples of it. One is called as lichens and second is called as mosses. When you talk about lichens, lichens is a combination of what? It is a combination of fungus with photosynthetic partner. Fungus with photosynthetic partner. And this photosynthetic partner is what? This photosynthetic partner is generally an algae. But sometimes can be bacteria also, because some bacteria also perform photosynthesis. So, we can see that lichens is a combination of fungus, and they have asked you this question in examination, that lichens is a combination of what? So, lichens is a combination of fungus with photosynthetic partner, which is generally lichens is a combination. Now, mosses and lichens, anyone? Lichens is a combination of fungus with photosynthetic partner, which is generally an algae, but sometimes is bacteria also. And they have asked you in UPSC that lichens is a combination of what, and they have put forward both the options. So in this kind of question, when both the options are put forward, you would be selecting that which is frequently present. But when you talk about mosses, mosses are flowerless plant, which belong to the class of what? Which belong to the class of bryophyta. So they are flowerless plant, belong to the class of bryophyta. Clear? So that's your first stage of Sere, which is called as stage of pioneer plants. Now the second stage is called as what? The second stage is called as stage of opportunist plant. Opportunist plant. And why we are saying stage of opportunist plant? Because in this phase, we can see, in this phase, after the formation of soil, small vegetation in this area would be thriving. For example, grasses, for example, herbs. Now, these vegetation would be continuing to live for 1 or 2 years. 1 या 2 साल तक ये सर्वाइव करेंगे, grasses या herbs. But during this period, they would be responsible for generating enormous amount of seeds. लेकिन इस period में क्या करेंगे वो? बहुत सारे बीज बनाएंगे. So if they are responsible for generating enormous amount of seeds, they are ensuring the survival of their future generation. They are ensuring the survival of their future generation. So we can see that they are acting for themselves only, and that's why they would be called as what? Selfish in nature. So they are opportunist plant. So they are acting for themselves only, and they are called as what? They are called as opportunist plant. Fine. So we can see that grasses, herbs or shrubs would be called as opportunist plant. Then the third, we can see, the third is called as what? The third is called as stage of climax plant. Stage of climax plants, or stage of climax plants means what? That in this period, we can see tall trees would be growing. In this period, tall trees grow. And these tall trees, the leaves of these trees are responsible for what? The leaves of these trees are responsible for obstructing solar radiation. मान लो ये leaves है, so it obstructs the solar radiation, because of which lower vegetation in this area would be very scarce. तो इसके जो पत्ते हैं वो क्या करेंगे? ऑब्स्ट्रक्ट करेंगे सोलर रेडिएशन को, तो उससे लोअर वेजिटेशन जो है वो बहुत कम रहेगा. एंड दैट इज व्हाई इट इज कॉल्ड एज क्लाइमेक्स प्लांट. द न्यूमरस एग्जांपल्स ऑफ क्लाइमेक्स प्लांट, फॉर एग्जांपल पाइन, फॉर एग्जांपल देवदार is an example of climax plant. For example, oak is an example of climax plant. So all these are examples of pine, devdar, oak. All these are example of spruce. All these are nothing but examples of pioneer plants. Clear? Pioneer plants. So there are 3 stages in Sere. First is called as stage of pioneer plants, second is called as stage of opportunist plant, and third is called as stage of climax plant. Stage of pioneer plants, examples include what? Examples includes lichens and mosses. Lichens are a combination of fungus with photosynthetic partner, which is generally an algae but sometimes can be bacteria. And mosses means flowerless plant belonging to the class of bryophyta. Then we can see second is what? Second, we can say that the second stage is stage of opportunist plant, which includes what? Which includes grasses, herbs, and these plants would be staying for. No, mosses is not. Mosses is flowerless plant. Without flower they are. Belong to the class of bryophyta. देखो लाइकेंस जो है ना, लाइकेंस 2 चीज़ के कॉम्बिनेशन है. एक है फंगस और दूसरा है क्या? फोटोसिंथेटिक पार्टनर, जिसमें जनरली क्या है? फोटोसिंथेटिक पार्टनर algae होगा, sometimes bacteria. Mosses are what? Mosses are flowerless plant. Without flower they are. They belong to the class of bryophyta. They are not fungus as such. Yes, similar characteristic of trees are found in the tropical evergreen forest also. Clear? Now, तो तीन चीज आपको याद रखने हैं. फर्स्ट इज व्हाट? फर्स्ट इज pioneer plants, जिसके दो एग्जाम्पल मैंने बताया, lichens और mosses. Second is opportunist plant, which two examples I have taught, and this grasses and what? Herbs. And third is what? Third is climax plants, pine, spruce, devdar. All these are examples. Clear? All these are examples. Now see, the third principle of ecology that you have to know is called as what? It is called as ecological productivity. Ecological productivity. Now see, in ecological productivity what happens? In the option algae and bacteria, then you have to select algae because more frequently algae is present. Clear? Now see, the third is called as ecological productivity. Ecological productivity का मतलब क्या है? See, when photosynthesis is performed, natural organic matter is generated. Or suppose chemosynthesis is also performed, natural organic matter is generated. So, natural organic matter is in the form of polysaccharides or cellulose. But we say that, and what is performed is mainly photosynthesis. Chemosynthesis is very rarely performed. So, we are saying that the rate at which, the speed at which natural organic matter is generated would be called as what? It would be called as ecological productivity. So, we are saying that the speed at which natural organic matter is generated would be called as what? It would be called as ecological productivity. Ecological productivity. Rate at which natural organic matter is generated would be called as ecological productivity. Clear? And as far as ecological productivity is concerned, मान लो, if you are talking about ecological productivity, तो natural organic matter किस rate से generate हो रहा है? There are two factors which are responsible. One is the amount of solar radiation. So first factor is what? First factor is the amount of solar radiation. Amount of solar radiation. And second factor is what? The ability of plants through which it converts solar energy into chemical energy. Clear? Which can be used obviously in photosynthesis. So first is what? First is the amount of solar radiation. So suppose the amount of solar radiation is more, productivity is more. And second is what? Second is the ability of plants through which it is converting solar energy into what? Solar energy into chemical energy, so that it can be utilized for photosynthesis. Yes, these are found in every succession as such. And we can see the best example, just 1 minute here, one thing I missed. The best example of serre is what? The best example of serre is Himalayas. Why? You can see in greater Himalayas, snow-capped mountains are there. But where these snow-capped mountains are not there, you would be finding lichens and mosses in large numbers. Mosses in large numbers. Clear? Then we can see that in the middle Himalayas, the grasses, herbs are present. In the middle and the outer Himalayas, pine forest is also present. So, all the three stages of serre would be reflected here. We are saying that all the three stages of serre would be reflected here. Clear? In Himalayas. And why? Because Himalayas are the newest mountain range of the world, and it is still in the process of its formation. So, Himalayas happen to be the newest mountain range of the world, and it is still in the process of its formation. Okay, so in Maharashtra, we do not find big plants which obstruct sunlight or glow or to grow another plant. Sir, in Maharashtra, we do not found big plants which obstruct sunlight to grow on another. That now this Maharashtra specific case. But in Himalayas, it can be seen that where the pine forest is present, the lower vegetation would be very scarce. The lower vegetation would be very scarce. So this is called as ecological productivity, and we can see that ecological productivity would be depending on these two main factors. One is the amount of solar radiation and second is the ability of plant through which it converts solar energy into chemical energy. But if at all they ask you the ecological productivity of wetlands, you know very well that wetlands are what? Wetlands are temporary or permanent accumulation of water. Temporary or permanent accumulation of water. Accumulation of water. And why? They behave also as a separate ecosystem. So they are called as wetland. They are behaving as a separate ecosystem and they are temporary or permanent accumulation of water. But as far as wetland is concerned, there are four types of wetlands, although very famous is the Ramsar list 1971, which includes wet list of international importance. You can see a number of wetlands have been added into that list. 75 wetlands from India are present in the Ramsar list of international importance. But any wetland would be called as wetlands of international importance, provided has the ability to attract at least 20,000 water birds. Then only it can be called as wetlands of international importance. If suppose it has the ability to attract at least 20,000 water birds. Clear? See, as far as the remembering of species is concerned, please remember the new wetlands which has been added from India into the Ramsar list. At least 20-25 wetlands have been added which are recent. So go through the names of those wetlands and in which state they are present. Sometimes they can ask you a question on match that these are the new wetlands added in the Ramsar list from India. Clear? So that can be asked. And don't have to mug up each and every. For example, suppose the biggest wetland in India is what? The biggest wetland in India is the Sundarbans. The first wetland which was added into the Ramsar list was the Ghana. The smallest wetland from India is what? Renuka. So, and add to that some of the new wetlands which have been added. So, go through that list of 20-25 odd wetlands and you can answer the questions. Otherwise, they are not going to ask you all the wetlands. Clear? But this is 1971 Ramsar list we discussed that it includes wetlands of international importance. But if we have to classify wetlands into types, we can classify wetlands into four types. One is called as what? One is called as mangrove swamps. Mangrove swamps. Now, mangrove swamps are wetlands which are present in the coastal areas. It is followed by what? It is followed by and this has high ecological productivity. Maximum ecological productivity would be in mangrove swamps. The second highest ecological productivity would be where? It would be present in the marshes. Marshes are wetlands which are present near the rivers or the lakes. Then we can see that the productivity would be for what? It would be for fens. Fens are wetlands which have been formed. And these kind of wetlands have been formed how? These kind of wetlands have been formed due to surface water accumulation, surface water accumulation, water accumulation or underground water accumulation or underground water accumulation. So, and then the productivity would be least for a type of wetland which is called as peat bogs. So peat bogs is a wetland which is formed due to melting of snow, or is formed due to rainwater harvesting or rainwater accumulation, not harvesting, rainwater accumulation. And these are purest form of water, so they would be lacking nutrients. So we can see mangrove swamp, which is present in the coastal area, is a type of wetland which would be having high ecological productivity. Followed by what? Followed by marshes, which is present near the rivers or the lakes. Followed by fens, which is formed due to the surface water or underground water accumulation. Followed by peat bogs, which is formed due to melting of snow or rainwater accumulation. So that's the sequence how the ecological productivity is arranged. Sometimes we can see that they ask you objective type questions on ecological productivity. Remember one more thing, and then we will solve these questions. That as far as ecological productivity is concerned, ecological productivity on earth is maximum for tropical rainforest. It's maximum for tropical rainforest. I am coming to that which has just let me explain, and then all these queries that you have written would be clear. Fine. Now when we are talking about ecological productivity, we can see ecological productivity is maximum on earth for tropical rainforest. That's one fact that you have to remember. But ecological productivity of oceans is low. And why low? Because the solar radiation is obstructed by the water body, first, and there is lack of nutrients in saline water. If suppose nutrients is more, the concentration of phytoplankton would be more. If nutrient is more, the concentration of phytoplankton would be more. But lack of nutrients can be seen in saline water. The coastal area of oceans only constitute 0.2% of the entire ocean. But that is responsible for 30% of the ecological productivity of ocean. How? Clear? How? We can see suppose this is the ocean. In the oceans in general we have said that oceans have low ecological productivity. But that part of the ocean which is near the coast and where corals are present, suppose the main agency for deposition of sediment in ocean is the rivers. So rivers carry agricultural waste and this would be deposited here. Because of the deposition of sediment, the nutrient content of this area would be enhancing. And since the nutrient content of this area enhances, the concentration of phytoplanktons and algae in this area would be more when compared to midst of ocean. The concentration of algae and phytoplankton in this area would be more when compared to midst of ocean. And that's why we can see the coastal area would be registering very high ecological productivity. But in the coastal area near the continental shelf, corals are also present. This would be also responsible for enhancing productivity. So we can see oceans in general would be having low ecological productivity, but that part of the ocean, just one second. But that part of the ocean which is near the coast, that part of the ocean which is near the coast, where corals are present, where algal bed is present, where phytoplankton and algae are present in large numbers, this area would be registering a very high ecological productivity, and this area would be called as what? It would be called as tropical rainforest of oceans. Tropical rainforest of oceans. And why so? Because in this area the concentration of phytoplanktons and algae is more. In this area the corals are present. Corals are present. Clear? So in this area we can see this area would be called as tropical rainforest of the ocean. And corals, why we are saying? Because corals are in a symbiotic relationship with an algae which is called as zooxanthellae. So this area would be called as tropical rainforest of oceans. Clear? Tropical rainforest of oceans. Clear? Now see the questions that they have asked you. If you talk about individual ecological productivity, some figures that you can remember. For example, mangrove areas. Mangrove areas would be having ecological productivity of 2500 gram per centimeter square per year. That's how it is represented. And suppose we are talking about the algal bed in the coastal areas. Algal bed in the coastal areas would be having ecological productivity of 2000 gram per centimeter square per year. Coral bed would be having ecological productivity of 2000 gram per centimeter square per year. And also we can see the estuaries, that is the place where the rivers are responsible for meeting the oceans. In the estuaries we can see ecological productivity would be 1800 gram per centimeter per square. So all these are the areas of high ecological productivity. Now in the examination they have asked you a question, and they have asked you to arrange these in order of decreasing ecological productivity, and they have given you the options: lakes, grasslands, oceans, and mangrove swamps. Lakes, grassland, oceans, and mangrove swamps. Now in this question it would be maximum for which? Tell me. No, peat bog has nothing to do with peat coal. Sir, this area supports more than fauna and flora than tropical rainforest. Yes, that's why it's called as tropical. Now tell me, lakes, grassland, oceans, mangrove swamps. Which area would be having high ecological productivity? Now, yes, maximum it would be for mangrove. Then followed by grassland or lakes. It would be followed by what? It would be followed by grasslands. So, no. Just wait. See, mangrove area would be having high ecological productivity, followed by grassland. Look at the surface area which is responsible for performing photosynthesis. Then by lakes, and then by oceans, because not mentioned which part of the ocean. So then by oceans. So this would be the order. Clear? This would be the order. Fine. This is how the ecological productivity can be arranged. Now, we are deviating a bit from here, and we are trying to discuss a question. And these days, CBG happens to be much in news. That is compressed biogas. So expect a question on compressed biogas anytime in your examination. Clear? CBG is much in the news, and expect a question on compressed biogas anytime in your examination. So if suppose a question is asked like this, that consider the following statements. Consider the following statements. And obviously, select the code. Clear? Consider the following statements and obviously select the code. Correct code. We can see that CNG, and first statement is what? Compressed natural gas and compressed biogas is same. Is chemically same. Is chemically same. And second statement is what? Both have same calorific value. Both have same calorific value. And third statement is H2S is a part of biogas. And the codes include what? 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, only 1, only 2. So what can be the correct answer for this? What can be the correct answer? Consider the following statements. CNG and CVG are chemically same. Both have what? Both have same calorific value. H2S is a part of biogas. So is the statement correct? All the three. B. So answer is B. Second is 1 only 1. One only 2. The correct answer is all the three. The correct answer is all the three. Now see how. Let's see how. And for discussing this, we have to discuss what? We have to discuss purification of water. That how purification of water takes place. Clear? Purification of water takes place. Now, you can see that purification of water takes place how? When you are talking about purification of water, in purification of water, there is a treatment which is called as what? It is called as primary treatment. The first phase is called as what? It is called as primary treatment. And the second phase obviously would be called as secondary treatment. But in primary treatment, this water, which is the grey water, is passed through what? It is passed through a bar screen. Bar screen means, grey water means what? There are different kinds of water also. Grey water is a type of water which is contaminated. So the water which is coming out of your house drains is called as grey water, or the water which is coming out after the industrial use would be called as grey water. So grey water is what? It's contaminated water. Fine. Blue water is water which is present in your rivers or the lakes. Then we can see there's also water which is called as fossil water. Fossil water is a water which is present in your undisturbed space. Clear? It is present in your undisturbed space. And also we can see another water is called as what? It is called as green water. Green water is that amount of rainfall, which is that fraction of rainfall which is trapped in the soil and used for cultivation of crops. But when we are talking about grey water, so primary treatment starts when grey water is passed through what? It is passed through a bar screen. So suppose this is a bar screen. And here what happens, that the larger debris would be getting accumulated here. Now these debris would be separated, and separated how? This would be separated mechanically. Then we can see that it would be again, this water would be passed through another chamber. And this chamber through which the water is passed is called as what? It is called as grit chamber. Grit का मतलब है कीचड़. So this is called as what? It's called as grit chamber. And when the water is passed through it, we are responsible for reducing the velocity of flow. So the velocity of flow is reduced, because of which what will happen? The grit, that is कीचड़, would be settling down. Now this grit would be removed mechanically. Clear? So this is called as grit chamber. Then again we can see the water is passed through another chamber. And this chamber is called as what? It's called as primary clarifier. So this is called as what? It's called as primary clarifier. And here we can see that in the earlier grid chamber, we were responsible for what? We were responsible for making water motionless, but velocity of flow was reduced. But in this case, we are responsible for making water. In this case, we are responsible for making water motionless. So when we make water motionless, the oil which is present in the water would be suspended. So this oil would be suspended. And the larger organic matter, so we can see large, not small, large organic matter would get settled. Now these two things, oil plus large organic matter would be separated and they would be combined to form what is called as raw sludge. इन दोनों को क्या करते हैं? निकाल लेते हैं और मिक्स करके रखते हैं, इसको कहते हैं raw sludge. And this raw sludge would be treated separately. Why grassland before lakes? Because the grasses have a large surface area, although deposition of sediment would also take place in the lakes. What would be the order if coral bed, not bed it should be, would have been mentioned instead of oceans? Then the coral bed, if suppose it would have been mentioned, then it would be coming before the grasslands. After mangroves, it will come. Yes, definitely. Sir, thirdly, algal bed has more ecological productivity or coral bed? See, both have similar ecological productivity. 2000 is gram per centimeter square is per year is the ecological productivity of algal bed. 2000 gram per centimeter square per year is the ecological productivity of algal bed. Clear? Which among the two? Both would be having. First time I am attending your class. How happily you are teaching. It's great to learn from you. Thank you. Thank you, Anjalija. Primary producer means those which are responsible for performing photosynthesis. Is more in grassland. Yes, definitely. Clear? Now see, this is how the raw sludge would be gathered and here the primary treatment ends. But second is called as what? Second phase is called as what? It's called as secondary treatment. Secondary treatment. And in this phase, what happens? In this phase, what is happening? That the water which is coming from the primary treatment, suppose this is the water which is coming from the primary treatment, would be passed through what? Would be passed through another system which is called as what? It is called as trickling filter system. Another system which is called as what? It is called as trickling filter system, and in which there are small sized rocks with spaces for aeration, air, and also in these the microorganisms are present. Microorganisms are present. So this is called as what? This is called as trickling filter system. Filter system. And the water would be passed through it. And what will happen in these gaps? The aerobic decomposition of organic waste would take place. We will say that aerobic decomposition in presence of air, because it's meant for aeration also. Decomposition of organic waste would take place because the larger organic matter you have separated earlier through primary clarifier. What is left is smaller organic matter. So aerobic decomposition of organic waste would take place, and then we can see that the water which is coming out from here is now pure water, and this would be treated with chlorine. So you get the pure water. So that is how water purification takes place. But what about the raw sludge? So we are responsible for treating raw sludge in a separate chamber, And this chamber is called as what? It is called as dry digester. Dry digester. So here we are responsible for immersing the raw sludge. Raw sludge is immersed and anaerobic decomposition takes place. Anaerobic decomposition means without the use of air. Anaerobic decomposition takes place. So when anaerobic decomposition of raw sludge would be taking place, because you have to treat it separately, then we can see that two products would be obtained. One is what? One is biogas, and that's why we have connected it to purification of water. And second is what? Second is biosolids. First is biogas and second is what? Second is biosolids. So we can see two products would be obtained. One is called as biogas and second is called as biosolid. Clear? Second is called as biosolid. And if we talk about biogas, we can see biogas consists of what? Biogas consists of methane, and methane is 55 to 60%. CO2, that is from 40 to 45%. And also H2S, it is present in biogas in traces. तो क्या करेंगे इससे? CO2 को हटा देंगे and this would be इसे हटाएंगे एक process से जिससे कहते हैं what? This is called as amine scrubbing process. We'll discuss amine scrubbing process also. So this would be removed by amine scrubbing process. H2S also would be removed with the help of activated carbon. Activated carbon. Clear? And the remaining is what? Methane. So if suppose we are responsible for generating biogas, we can remove CO2 from it, we can remove H2S from it. Clear? H2S from it. And the second part is what? Second part is called as biosolid. Biosolid ko hum log, we are using it as a manure in the field. We are using it as a manure in the field. Now, India has launched a program. And this program is called as what? It is called as SATAT. SATAT means Sustainable Alternatives Towards Affordable Transportation. So India has launched a program which is called as SATAT, which is called, the meaning full form is Sustainable Alternatives Towards Affordable Transportation. And what is the meaning of SATAT? See, the problem in India is that we are incurring a very high cost. We incur a very high cost in importing CNG from other countries. We import CNG from UAE, Saudi Arabia, etc. So we incur a very high cost. But on the other hand, we can see, on the other hand, we have abundance of organic waste in India. We have a large number of cattle, cow dung, municipal waste also includes organic waste. So why not convert this organic waste into biogas? So under the SATAT program, that is Sustainable Alternative Towards Affordable Transportation, we are going to establish 5,000 plants in India, in different parts of India, and these 5,000 plants would be based on dry digester technique to develop biogas. Dry digester technique to develop biogas. Clear? And the biogas which is developed by dry digester technology, Govardhan, clear, would be from it, we would be responsible for what? We would be responsible for removing CO2 by amine scrubbing process, and also H2S would be removed by activated carbon. What is remaining is methane, which would be compressed, and this would be called as what? And this would be stored in cylinder, which would be called as compressed biogas. So CNG is what? CNG is nothing but methane. CBG is what? CBG is nothing but methane. So CNG and CBG are exactly the same. And since chemically they are exactly the same, they have same calorific value. So they are responsible for having the same calorific value. So CNG, CBG are exactly the same. They have same calorific value. Clear? And as far as CNG and CBG is concerned, they are having same calorific value. We can see that same calorific value, and H2S is a part of biogas also, that you know very well. But this program is called as SATAT, and the other advantage of it would be what? That not only you are obtaining methane as compressed biogas and using it in transport vehicles, you are also getting biosolids which is used as manure in the field. So 20 to 30% of agricultural production would enhance with the help of biosolids. And biosolid also consists of silica. This would be disallowing the intake of contaminants from soil and preventing the plants also from diseases as such. Clear? Preventing the plant from diseases as such. Now that is about CNG, CBG. So CNG, CBG are same. They have same calorific value, and also you can see H2S is present in biogas. Discussing the principles of ecology and also discussed what is CBG, because CBG is more in the news today. So we discussed CBG also. But let us start now. And first thing that we would be responsible for discussing now is called as what? It is called as biosphere reserves. So we know that everybody knows that 18 biosphere reserves are there in India, and these biosphere reserves are 18 biosphere reserve, out of which 12 biosphere reserves have been included into UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserves. Clear? Out of which 12 biosphere reserves have been included. And as far as the other protected areas are concerned, we can see other protected areas include what? It includes national parks. It also includes wildlife sanctuaries. So more than 100 national parks are present in there in India, and also more than 560 wildlife sanctuaries are present in India. But as far as biosphere reserves are concerned, 18 biosphere reserves are present in India. But when we talk about biosphere reserves, we can see that biosphere reserves are areas of what? They are areas of terrestrial or coastal ecosystem. So they happen to be what? They happen to be areas of terrestrial or coastal ecosystem which have been recognized as reserves under the Man and Biosphere program of UNESCO. So we are saying that biosphere reserves are areas of terrestrial and coastal ecosystem, and they have been recognized as reserve under the Man and Biosphere program of UNESCO. Clear? Man and Biosphere program of UNESCO. So you can see 1971 is the year when not only the Ramsar Convention was signed, but 1971 is the year when also the Man and Biosphere program was launched. So they have been recognized under Man and Biosphere program of UNESCO. Now they are not only meant for protection of biological diversity, but they are also meant for protection of what? They are also meant for protection of cultural diversity. Now biodiversity, you understand, its fauna and flora constitutes the biodiversity. But when we talk about cultural diversity, we can see that cultural diversity means what? What is the implication of cultural diversity? Now humans have survived in nature for centuries. They have lived in nature for centuries, and their customs, traditions, beliefs, also religious beliefs, and also profession are all linked with nature. So we are saying that their customs, traditions, beliefs, profession, etc. are all linked with nature. Linked with nature. Now this constitutes the cultural diversity. And it's difficult to separate the cultural landscape from the natural landscape as such. And it's not only includes this, but also includes what? It includes traditional land use pattern or traditional land use practices which happen to be commensurate with nature, which are commensurate with, are suitable with nature. So that's called as what? That's called as cultural diversity. So when we are talking about cultural diversity means that humans have survived in nature for centuries. Their customs, their traditions, their religious belief, their occupation, etc. are all connected with nature. They are all connected with nature, and the traditional land use patterns which happen to be suitable with nature. For example, suppose we are using cow dung as manure in the field. That's not going to hamper the environment in any way. Or suppose we are responsible for not only using cow dung as manure in the field, but also we are responsible for using rotational crops in the field. That's in fact responsible for enhancing the fertility of the soil. So all these would be called as what? All these traditional land use pattern would be called as cultural diversity, which would be commensurate with nature, which would be suitable with nature. Clear? Suitable with nature. Now, so it's not only meant for protection of biological diversity, but also cultural diversity. We can see also biosphere reserves are used for what? It is used for fostering economic growth. So you can see that it was established under Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. Biosphere Program of UNESCO. It was started in 1971 and it is meant for protection of what? It is meant for protection of not only biodiversity but also cultural diversity. And cultural diversity, I have just explained that what is the meaning of cultural diversity. But it's also used for fostering. It is also used for fostering economic growth. Economic growth. But the development should be what? The development should be sustainable in nature. It is also meant for fostering economic growth, but the development should be sustainable in nature. When we talk about comparing biosphere reserve, we know that 18 biosphere reserves are present in India, and we know that more than 560 wildlife sanctuaries are present in India, and we know that more than 100 national parks are present in India. But when we compare biosphere reserves with national park and wildlife sanctuaries, we can see that the difference between the three is what? First basis of difference is what? First basis of difference is that biosphere reserves are declared under Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. Clear? Biosphere reserves are declared under Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. But when we talk about national park and wildlife sanctuaries, national park and wildlife sanctuaries are declared by the state government. Clear? तो सबसे पहले क्या है कि वो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट डिक्लेयर करती है और इसे मैन एंड बायोस्फीयर प्रोग्राम ऑफ यूनेस्को में डिक्लेयर किया जाता है. द सेकंड बेसिस इज व्हाट ऑफ डिफरेंस? द सेकंड बेसिस ऑफ डिफरेंस इज व्हाट? कॉम्प्रिहेंसिवनेस. कि सबसे बड़ा कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव कौन है? नाउ वी कैन सी दैट मोस्ट कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव इज व्हाट? बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व. Because within one biosphere reserve, more than one national park or more than one wildlife sanctuaries can be present. So that's the second difference. The third difference is what? When you talk about the third difference between biosphere reserve, national park and wildlife sanctuary, third difference is how human activities are regulated. किस तरह से human activities को regulate किया जाता है? We can see in biosphere reserves, human activity would be regulated in more flexible manner, but more stringently it is regulated where? More strictly it is regulated in national parks. सबसे ज़्यादा अगर स्ट्रिक्टली रेगुलेट हो रहा है कहाँ? तो इट इज़ रेगुलेटेड इन नेशनल पार्क्स. एंड वी कैन सी नो हंटिंग, नो ग्रेजिंग, नो हार्वेस्टिंग इज अलाउड इन नेशनल पार्क. Fine. But in wildlife sanctuaries, we are responsible for allowing hunting, not hunting, grazing would be allowed. Also harvesting, cultivation of crops would be allowed. But no hunting is allowed there also. Hunting is a big term. It can land you in trouble. And you have seen the cases which are there due to hunting. So it can land a person in trouble. So that's biosphere reserve. So we can see as far as regulation of activities is concerned. अगर मान लो regulation of activities को देखते हो, तो human activities are strictly regulated where? Human activities are strictly regulated in national parks. सबसे ज़्यादा strictly अगर regulate हो रहे हैं तो कहाँ? It is regulated in national parks. And in national parks, you are not allowing hunting, grazing, cultivation, harvesting. So for what purpose it is utilized? It is utilized only for recreational activities like tourism. लेकिन देखो, tourism also won't be allowed in the core areas of national park because Supreme Court has banned tourism in the core areas of national park. Clear? So it won't be allowed in the core areas of national park because Supreme Court has banned tourism in the core areas of national park. But on the other hand, we can see that as far as activities is concerned, we can see that in wildlife sanctuary, harvesting, cultivation of crops is allowed. And in biosphere reserve, in different zones, different activities are allowed. Let's see what kind of activities are allowed in these areas as such. Clear? But the fourth basis of difference between, see, biosphere reserves are declared under Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. But biosphere reserves are also recognized by MOEFCC. Yes, tribal people. Now, the fourth basis of difference is what? That for what purpose it is oriented. When we are talking about biosphere reserves are ecosystem oriented. They are meant for protection of ecosystem. Wildlife sanctuaries are species oriented. And when we talk about national park is oriented for protection of mainly one animal. You can see that the emphasis in national park is for protection of one animal. So every time we can see national park would be dedicated for one animal. Fine. When you are talking about national park, it would be dedicated for one animal. So it can be a tiger reserve, it can be a lion reserve, it can be an elephant reserve. So it would be dedicated for protection of one animal, each and every national park. Clear? It does not mean that other animals would be allowed to die, but the emphasis would be on the protection of one main animal. Some species I will discuss definitely, in between I will discuss some species, but I am discussing those species through questions. Clear? So after this we start the test one by one, and then again discuss ozone layer, then again test on ozone layer, then again discuss global warming, then again test on global warming, then again discuss pollution, then test on pollution as such. In this we would be moving forward. Clear? Fine. So let's cover up that, and then we'll have a exclusive test on Convention on Biodiversity because it has been recently concluded. Then we'll have a exclusive test on COP27 because it also last year was concluded. Then we'll have a exclusive test on plastic pollution, and then we'll have a exclusive test on protected areas. So we'll start the protected area test right now after completing this. Clear? Fine. I think that would be sufficient for you, and that would be a texting session. Fine. So let's continue and let's do as much as we can as such. Now, we can see that biosphere reserves are ecosystem oriented, wildlife sanctuaries are species oriented, and when we talk about national park is oriented for the protection of mainly one animal. The emphasis is laid on protection of one animal. That's why each and every national park would be dedicated to one animal. But in 1983 we can see UNEP and UNESCO was responsible for conducting a conference at Minsk, where 4 areas of 4 zones of biosphere reserve were demarcated. Now, when we talk about the first zone, now first zone is called as what? This zone is referred to as what? It is referred to as the core zone here. And in core zone, we can see that human activities would be what? Human activities would be minimal, naganya, minimal, सबसे कम human activities. But what? What kind of human activities? Now, see, in the conferences COP I'll discuss in the class. Clear? Because it's so wide to cover. But at least I'll discuss all those things which would be sufficient for you to meet the challenge of preliminary examination. Now, human activities would be minimal. Fine. And I'll try whatever I can discuss. I'll wake up till midnight. So we'll, from good night to good morning, we'll be together. Fine. So let's cover up as much as we can. Now, human activities would be minimal in this area, and we can see that the human activities which would be allowed in this area would be what? It would be research, it would be training, it would be education. So, you can see education, research and training would be allowed. Clear? Education, research and training would be allowed in this area. And in this area, human activities which are allowed would be managed by what? It would be managed by 3 acts. So, the activities, human activities which are allowed would be managed by 3 acts. 3 acts से manage किया जाएगा. Forest Act 1927, then also Wildlife Protection Act 1972, and then Forest Conservation Act 1980. So, you can see 3 activities responsible for managing human activities in the core areas of national park, that is Forest Act 1927. Let's see to what extent we can cover up. I'll try my best to cover up maximum. Clear? So, we can see that in this area, Forest Act 1927, Wildlife Protection Act 1972 and Forest Conservation Act 1980. So, there are 3 acts which is responsible for governing or regulating human activities in this area. Now, that's core zone. Core zone are also present in national park. Core zones are also present in wildlife sanctuaries. But in national parks, tourism has been banned in the core zone of national parks. Clear? So, it has been banned in the core zone of national parks. But when you talk about buffer zone, this area, buffer zone. Now, we can see in buffer zone, if we have said that in core zone, human intervention would be minimal, then in buffer zone, we can see that human intervention on a low scale would be allowed. Clear? So, we are saying that in buffer zone, human intervention on a low scale would be allowed. And activities like what? Activities like hunting, fishing, grazing, timber collection would be allowed. Now, see, hunting is a big term. How can you allow hunting? Now, hunting is not allowed for me and you. Hunting is allowed only for tribals, for forest dwellers, and that is to gather their foodstuffs. So, for them hunting would be allowed, not for me and you, because me and you, if we hunt, it would be landing you in trouble. Clear? So, hunting won't be allowed for me and you. Then also we can see that grazing would be not allowed without restrictions. Overgrazing is always responsible for desertification. Timber collection, we say that timber collection is also allowed. Timber collection does not mean deforestation, and fishing is allowed. So, we can see that activities which are allowed in buffer zone include hunting, timber collection, fishing. So, these activities are allowed. But then remember that these activities, as far as these activities are concerned, they would be highly regulated in nature. Clear? So, hunting would be allowed in buffer zone only for the tribals or only for the forest dwellers, and the purpose is to gather their foodstuffs. Clear? And where IFO's offices are posted. IFO's offices are posted in buffer zone, in these zones. See, list that tribal can hunt. There, when you talk about IUCN list, we can see IUCN list includes what? It includes some species are called as vulnerable. Beyond that, if the vulnerability enhances, they would be called as endangered. An endangered species would be of 2 kinds, critically endangered also, endangered also. But critically endangered species would become sometimes extinct in the wild and then sometimes completely extinct. So, there are different categories. But there is a category of IUCN which is called as species of least concern. They are not vulnerable. So, the hunting would be taking place of those species which are species of least concern. Clear? Hunting would be taking place of those species which are species of least concern. So, that kind of hunting would be taking place. Fine. of least concern. So now we can see also that the activities in buffer zone would be managed by another act, and that act is called as what? Environment Protection Act of 1986. So activities in buffer zone would be managed by Environment Protection Act of 1986. Clear? Now the third area is called as what? It is called as restoration zone. Now why it is called as restoration zone? Because in this area, what has happened? That due to anthropogenic activity, से restoration zone कहते क्यों हैं? Why it is called as restoration zone? हिंदी में उसे कहते हैं पुनर्स्थापन क्षेत्र. Clear? But इसे क्यों कहेंगे? Why? Because in this area, human activities were responsible for degradation on a large scale. So this area needs to be restored to its original form. Clear? This area needs to be restored to its original form, and that's why it is called as restoration zone, or it's also called as reclamation zone. इसे कहेंगे restoration zone भी और इसे कहेंगे reclamation zone भी. Reclamation zone. And in this area, what would be done? We can see that reforestation would be taking place. Now UPSC preparation, sorry sir, please continue. Doubts we can take later on. Yes, we can take doubts later on, and I have attended more or less all the doubts. One or two may be missed, otherwise all have been attended. Let's continue at a speed so that we can cover up all these things. Now in this area, reforestation would be conducted on a large scale. Now we are saying reforestation would be conducted on a large scale. We haven't said that afforestation would be conducted on a large scale, because this area had what? This area earlier had vegetation. This area earlier had forest. So it cannot be said to be afforestation, but only reforestation it can be said. Clear? Now, the last zone is called as what? The last zone is called as stable cultural zone, which reflects what? It reflects the cultural diversity of biosphere reserve. It reflects what? The cultural diversity of biosphere reserve. And you know that what is cultural diversity? We have discussed that what comes under cultural diversity. See, eco-sensitive zone we are just discussing. Just wait for a minute. In some material, no human activities, no. Minimal human activities are allowed, for example, education, research and training. And in buffer zone, you can see that activities like timber collection, grazing, etc. would be allowed, but all these would be highly restricted in nature. All these would be highly regulated in nature. Yes, I'll put some light on the SC's vertex just now. After coming to eco-sensitive zone, I'll put that. Now, that's about your biosphere reserve. Now, as far as the factuals of biosphere reserve are concerned, we can see that 18 biosphere reserves are present in India altogether. The first biosphere reserve was what? The first biosphere reserve was Nilgiris, which was declared in 1986. But remember that if they ask you in examination, where is the Avalanche Valley situated? So Avalanche Valley is situated where? Avalanche Valley is situated in the Nilgiris only. Avalanche Valley is situated where? It is situated in the Nilgiris only. Because Nilgiris is also prone to landslides. So you can see that Avalanche Valley would be situated in the Nilgiris. And as far as Avalanche Valley is situated in the Nilgiris. And we can see the 17th Biosphere Reserve was Sessachalam declared. and Seschachelam is in Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh, and this is very famous for what is called as red sanders. Red sanders means red sandalwood, the export and import of which has been completely banned in India. And red sandalwood is very famous of Andhra Pradesh, the Seschachelam Hills. So, Seschachelam Biosphere Reserve is very important. Then we can see 18th Biosphere Reserve, which was the last Biosphere Reserve declared, was called as Panna. Panna is from Madhya Pradesh. But out of the 18, 12 biosphere reserves have been included in UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserves. Clear? Out of 18, 12 biosphere reserves have been included in where? It has been included in UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve. Network of Biosphere Reserves. And when you talk about UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve, it is for greater cooperation among nations, greater exchange of experience between the nations. It's also for the exchange of personnels. So, all these are there when you are talking about the biosphere reserves. But out of the 18, 12 which have been included in that, and that you have to remember, and that is what? One is Nilgiris. Nilgiris, and it stretches out in 3 states, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Karnataka. Then second is what? Second is Nokrek. Nokrek is where? Nokrek is in Meghalaya. Meghalaya. Nokrek is in Meghalaya. Third is what? Third is Nanda Devi. Nanda Devi is in Uttarakhand. Fourth is what? Fourth is Great Nicobar. That's an Andaman and Nicobar Island, no need to mention. Fifth is what? Fifth is Simlipal. Simlipal is in Odisha. Then sixth is where? Sixth is Sundarbans. Sundarbans is in West Bengal. Then seventh is what? Seventh is Panna. Eighth, Panchmari, a very famous hill station. And ninth, Amarkantak. Amarkantak. And all these are from Madhya Pradesh. So, maximum from Madhya Pradesh, 3 from Madhya Pradesh in UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve. Then we can see that Agastya Malaya is present. Agastya Malaya. And Agastya Malaya stretches out in 2 states, Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Then also we can see Gulf of Mannar is present. It's between India and Sri Lanka, and the last one. But the reserve which was added recently in 2020 was Panna, although we have mentioned there Kanchenjunga. And Kanchenjunga is in Sikkim. As far as Kanchenjunga is concerned, it has been declared as what? It has been declared as a mixed heritage site by UNESCO, because not only it is known for cultural significance but also for natural significance. So, it has been declared as mixed heritage site by UNESCO. Now, Kanchenjunga is the highest biosphere reserve of India because it includes the Kanchenjunga peak also at 586 meters, and it has 420 medicinal plants in it. Then also it is home to musk deer, snow leopard, red panda, all these things. Clear? So, it has been declared as mixed heritage site by UNESCO because not only known for natural significance but also for cultural significance. Clear? Cultural significance. But if suppose we say that this is a protected area, this may be a biosphere reserve or a national park or a wildlife sanctuary, beyond the protected area to a stretch of about 5 kilometers, eco-sensitive zone should be established. We are saying that beyond the protected area to a stretch of about 5 kilometers, eco-sensitive zones should be established. And these eco-sensitive zones, when we are talking about eco-sensitive zones should be established, this would be acting as what? It would be acting as an insulator. It would be acting as what? It would be acting as a shock absorber. So, it would be acting as insulator, it would be acting as shock absorber, and it is responsible for disallowing the activities which is taking place here, the anthropogenic activities which is taking place here, the impact of these activities won't fall on protected areas. So, that is why we are needing a insulator. See, earlier, yes, Amarkantak, do we count in MP? Yes, in this case it is MP only, yes. Fine, fine, we will relate that. Okay. Now, we can see that earlier this area, that is eco-sensitive zone, was 10 kilometers. But in 2014, it was reduced to 5 kilometers. When the new government came in power, it was reduced to 5 kilometers and continues to be like that. But recently, the Supreme Court has expressed its verdict, and that this area should be reduced to 1 kilometer. So, not 5 kilometers, should be reduced to 1 kilometer. When we talk about activities in this area, activities in this area can be divided into 3. Clear? When we are talking about activities in this area, it can be divided into 3. First is what? First is permissible activity. Permissible activity means day-to-day activity like agriculture would be called as permissible. But to say that agriculture is only the permissible activity in this area would be wrong, because agriculture would be one among the permissible activity which would be allowed in this area. Second would be called as what? Second would be called as regulated activity. Clear? Regulated activity. So, we can see that regulated activity includes what? It includes establishment of river embankments, बांधों का बनाना, establishment of river embankments, establishment of hotels and resorts, then also widening of roads, So, all these kind of activity would be called as regulated activity. Then we can see that some activity would be called as prohibited activity. Prohibited activity. It means that these activity would be prohibited in these areas completely. No, you cannot say that it is an eco-sensitive zone. No, it is not an eco-sensitive zone. Eco-sensitive zone is a natural thing, which is a demarcation zone between two ecosystems. It is not two ecosystems as such we are talking about. See, do we have legislation? Yes. See, references to eco-sensitive zone has been made at 2 places. First is your National Wildlife Action Plan 2002-2016. That's the first reference. And second is Environment Protection Act of 1986. So, references can be seen at 2 places. And third is prohibited activity. Definitely, we are not going to establish industries in these areas. So, that's prohibited activity. And not only industries, as far as even sawmills are concerned, sawmills also won't be established in these areas. So, that would be coming under the ambit of what? That would be coming under the ambit of prohibited activities as such. Clear? Prohibited activities. So, permissible activity, then we can see. No, eco-sensitive zone starts from where? It starts from the boundary of restoration zone. In case of biosphere reserve, in case of other, it starts from the boundary of buffer zone, because in national parks and wildlife sanctuary, you do not have restoration zone or the stable cultural zone. So, it starts from the buffer zone then only. Clear? Now, that's called, these are the 3 types of activities. But whenever we talk about whenever we are responsible for talking about eco-sensitive zones, we can see that reference is always made to what? Reference is always made to Western Ghats. Whenever the topic of eco-sensitive zone is discussed, reference is always made to Western Ghats. And when we talk about Western Ghats, we can see Western Ghat is a biodiversity hotspot of India. Western Ghat is called as paradise of biodiversity on earth. So Himalayas and Western Ghat both are referred to as what? Both are referred to as paradise of biodiversity on earth. Both Himalayas and Western Ghats are referred to as paradise. And when we are talking about Western Ghats, we can see there are a number of factors which are responsible for. Which proves damaging for the Western Ghats. For example, first factor is what? That a number of power lines are established in Western Ghats. Industrialization on a large scale, urbanization on a large scale, extension of agriculture on a large scale, all these prove to be detrimental for Western Ghats. So, there was a committee established by Government of India for Western Ghats. And this committee was called as what? This committee was called as Madhav Gadgil Committee. So there was a committee established for Western Ghat that was called as Madhav Gadgil Committee. And Madhav Gadgil Committee was responsible for submitting a report in 2013. Clear? Submitting a report in 2013. And this report said what? This report said that 2013, and this report said that out of 1 lakh, not 2013, Madhav Gadgil report is 2011. Sorry. So Madhav Gadgil Committee submitted a report in the year 2011, and this report stated that what? That out of Madhav Gadgil Committee. Now this reported suggested that out of 1,64,000 square kilometer of Western Ghats, that's the total area of Western Ghats. Out of 1,64,000 square kilometers of Western Ghats, we can see that 1,29,000 square kilometers should be declared as what? 1,29,000 square kilometers should be declared as eco-sensitive zone, ESZ. Now, this is a big area of Western Ghat. So, no government was responsible for accepting this, and this committee's recommendation was completely rejected by the government. Clear? And another committee was established. Now that was called as what? That was called as Kasturi Rangam Committee. So Kasturi Rangam Committee gave its recommendation in the year 2013, and this recommendation was 59,940 square kilometer Western Ghats. 59,940 square kilometer of Western Ghats should be declared as what? It should be declared as eco-sensitive zone. Clear? It should be declared as eco-sensitive zone. Now this was roughly acceptable to the government in its draft recommendation. So there are two committees. One is called as Madhav Gadgil Committee, and second is called as Kasturi Rangam Committee, that you have to know. And one can say also that the Kerala floods occurred due to non-adherence to Madhav Gadgil Committee's recommendation. Because the area which was recommended under Madhav Gadgil Committee, bulk of that area was present in Kerala. So it occurred due to non-acceptance of Madhav Gadgil Committee's recommendation. Clear? Fine. So this is called as eco-sensitive zone. But there are some other concepts which you have to know. In conservation, biosphere reserves, national park, wildlife sanctuaries won't do. There are some other concepts also which we have to cover up. Now, one concept is that of biodiversity hotspot. Now, we can see that the concept of biodiversity hotspot was given by whom? It was given by Norman Mayer. Norman Mayer. And he said that an area can be declared as hotspot. Area can be declared as hotspot, provided it fulfills two conditions. Now, the first condition is what? The first condition is that at least 1500 plant species, at least 1500 plant species, or 0.5% of entire plant species of the world. So in numbers 1500 and in percentage it is 0.5%. So at least 1500 plant species or 0.5% of entire plant species of the world should be endemic in this area. Should be endemic in this area means should be exclusively found in this area. Clear? So that's the first thing. And the second thing is what? That means that what kind of biodiversity is present in that area. And second thing is what? That about 70% of primary vegetation, about 70% of primary vegetation has been lost. 70% of primary vegetation have been lost. Clear? Thank you, Harveer Singh. And I'll be along with you to complete this segment. Fine. So I'm much prepared today. I'll from good night to good morning will do cover up and try to cover up as well. Now this would be easing the burden of your environment portion. And at least suppose if we are not able to cover each and every component, you can look into that. But at least 90% of the syllabus would be revised today. That's the purpose of this. Clear? About 70% of the primary vegetation. See, primary vegetation. Primary vegetation means that which has been established through primary plant succession. So about 70% of the primary vegetation has been lost. Yes, I am coming. Has been lost due to what? Due to anthropogenic activities. Clear? About 70% of the primary vegetation has been lost due to anthropogenic activities. Yes, about 70% of the primary vegetation. Now, primary vegetation is that vegetation which is established through primary plant succession. Remember that. Primary vegetation is that vegetation which is established through primary plant succession. And as far as primary plant succession is concerned, primary vegetation is concerned, there are two concepts of environment based on this. The first concept of environment which is based on this is the concept of what is called as frontier forest. Frontier forest means that this is the original forest of the planet Earth. Clear? And this consists of what? This consists of primary vegetation. And second is what? Second is biodiversity hotspot. Biodiversity hotspot. Because you can see that in biodiversity hotspots, primary vegetation has been mentioned. The original vegetation has been mentioned. So you can see that two factors which are responsible for determining whether an area is a hotspot or not. First is what? At least 1500 plant species or 0.5% of entire plant species of the world should be endemic in this area first. And second, about 70% of the primary vegetation has been lost due to the human activities or anthropogenic activities. Clear? Anthropogenic activities. And as far as hotspot, thank you so much, Saurav. I'll try to boost up your memories also. Don't worry about it. Now, there are 35 such hotspots in the world. But in India, we can see that there are 4 hotspots present in India. So, the first hotspot which is present in India is Himalayas. Clear? Second hotspot which is present in India is the Western Ghats. Third hotspot which is present in India is the hilly areas of India-Myanmar border. India-Myanmar border. And this is apart from Himalayas. And fourth hotspot which is present in India is Andaman and Nicobar Island. Andaman and Nicobar Island. And this is a part of what? This is a part of Sundaland. So Sunda land is a hotspot. So Andaman and Nicobar Island, which is a part of what? Which is a part of Sunda land. And you can see now Sunda land exists where? It exists in Indonesia, in Malaysia. Now the extension of that hotspots comes to Andaman and Nicobar Island. That's why we are saying that Andaman and Nicobar Island, which is a part of Sunda land. Now out of these 4 hotspots, we can see the first 2 are the most threatened, and we say that these are paradise of biodiversity on earth, but due to anthropogenic activities they happen to be paradise lost. So we are saying that due to anthropogenic activities they happen to be paradise lost. So, and this is said by whom? This is said by M.S. Swaminathan, that they are the paradise of biodiversity on earth. Now if suppose we have discussed the vulnerability of Western Ghat. If vulnerability of Himalayas is asked, vulnerability of Himalayas would be due to landslides, because 30% of global landslides takes place in Himalayan region and all. Vulnerability of Himalayas would be because of cloud busting, because Himalayas are prone to cloud busting. Vulnerability of Himalayas is due to also earthquakes, because we can see that Himalayas are prone to earthquakes also. Vulnerability of Himalayas is also anthropogenic factors which are responsible for vulnerability of Himalayas include what? Establishment of biomedical industries, establishment of tourist centers, establishment of not only biomedical tourist centers also, biomedical industry, dams and reservoirs also, which is responsible for enhancing the vulnerability of Himalayas. Himalayas is called as what? It is called as the third pole of the world. Third pole of the world, why? Because it is the biggest source of fresh water after Arctic and Antarctic region. Clear? After Arctic and Antarctic region. It is also called as what? It is also called as not only the third pole of the world, but it is also referred to as the water tower of the world. And what water tower of the world, why we are saying so? Because it is the highest source of fresh water in the world. So if we are saying that due to global warming the Himalayan glaciers melt, it would be disturbing the sustainability of life of 1 billion people who depend upon the water originating from the perennial rivers of Himalayas. And we can see also that not only this, it would be also hampering power generation, because a number of hydroelectric projects are established on these rivers. A number of hydroelectric projects are established on these rivers. But there's also another term that you have to know. It's better to know hotspot and mega hotspot than hope spots. Clear? Hope spots are there where we think that biodiversity would be established more and more. But when we are talking about mega hotspots, the concept of biodiversity mega hotspots, the concept of biodiversity mega hotspot was given by whom? It was given by an international organization called Conservation International. Conservation International. International organization, Conservation International, which is working for the conservation of nature. And as far as this organization is concerned, it says that these are areas of immense biodiversity. Clear? These are areas of immense biodiversity. And it does not mention that these are areas of immense biodiversity. It does not mention fauna and flora. Why? Because if you look at Mayer's definition is only based on what? Only based on flora. No reference has been made to fauna. But in case of Conservation International, it says that these are areas of immense biodiversity. They are threatened due to human intervention. Clear? They happen to be threatened due to human intervention, and they are responsible for lying at the confluence of, at the meeting point of more than 2 countries. That's why they are mega. So they are areas of immense biodiversity, threatened due to human intervention, and they lie at the confluence of more than 2 countries. That's why they are mega. So we can see that 12 such hotspots in the world, mega hotspots in the world, out of which 1 is present in India. 1 is present in India. And that one hotspot which is present in India is called as what? It is called as Namdhapa National Park. Namdhapa National Park, which is present in Arunachal Pradesh. Which is present in Arunachal Pradesh. Namdhapa National Park, which is present in Arunachal Pradesh, and we can see that it is at the confluence of what? Confluence of India, Myanmar and China, and this is a mega hotspot of only mega hotspot in India. There are 12 such hotspots, mega hotspots in the world, one of which is present in India. Clear? This is only the mega hotspot which is present in India. And this is at the confluence of India, China and also Myanmar. Clear? And also we can see that not only this, that more than 50% of biodiversity of Earth is concentrated only and only in 17 countries. These 17 countries are called as what? These 17 countries are referred to as mega biodiverse countries of the world. India is one among the 17 countries which are mega biodiverse countries of the world. Clear? Let's solve some questions now. Let's have some questions on these topics, whatever we have discussed. Now, these questions would be helpful to you. See, look at the first question. Which is the only species of red deer to be found in India? Can you answer that? Which is only species of red deer to be found in India? Now, the options are Indian glazel, then sambar, hangul and chausingha. Chausingha. Yes. Yes. C is the right answer. Not sambar, it's hangul. Clear? And hangul is also called as what? It is called as Kashmiri stag. Now, generally, when you are talking about red deer are found where? It is found in Europe also. It is found in Anatolia, Anatolian region, that's Turkey, Iran. And only one species is found in India, and that's also in Jammu and Kashmir, which is called as hangu. And this is found in Dachigram National Park, which is only 22 kilometers away from Srinagar. So that's your first question. Now see the second question. Consider the following statements related to Great Himalayan National Park and select the correct code. It is the largest protected area in Jammu and Kashmir. It consists of rich coniferous forest. It includes the Sanj and the Tirthan valleys. Can you tell me which is the correct answer? 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2, 3 and only 2. So tell me the second option. I am enlarging it for you. Fine. Tell me the second answer. Yes, some are correct, some are wrong also. Now the answer is what? Answer is the first option is incorrect. Clear? Because Great Himalayan National Park is not present in Jammu and Kashmir, it's present in Himachal Pradesh. It consists of rich coniferous forest, that's true. It includes the Sanj and the Tirthan Valley, that's true. So 2 and 3 would be the correct answer. Clear? 2 and 3 would be the correct answer. So that's your C. Fine, because this is present in Himachal Pradesh. Now, next question. Which of the following national park has highest density of tigers in India? Highest density of tigers in India. Yes, right. Sort of, it's in Himachal Pradesh. Now, which has the highest tiger density in India? Now, the highest tiger density in India is present where? It is present in Corbett National Park. Clear? So, the first answer is correct. 3A. Very good. Now, next question. Which one of the following national park is noted for its population of rare golden langur? Can you tell me where is rare golden langur found, exclusively found? Fine. The question number 4. Question number 4. Where is the rare golden langur found? Now, rare golden langur is found where? It is found in, not diagram, it is found in Manas Tiger Reserve. That's in Assam. The correct answer is what? The correct answer is Manas Tiger Reserve, which is present in Assam. Clear? Manas. So, just correct those options. Now, next. Which one of the following statement is incorrect? Kanha National Park is located in Mandla district of Madhya Pradesh. That is correct. And next is what? Tell me which is the incorrect. First I have read for you. That is correct. And B, C, D, you have to say which is incorrect. The Surpan river meanders through Kanha's central grassland. That is also correct. The Surpan river meanders through Kanha's central grassland. That's also correct. But the first ever scientific study of tiger was undertaken by eminent zoologist George Splater in this park. That's also correct. What is wrong is it was in Kanha that prestigious Project Tiger was launched in 1973. It was launched where? It was launched in Jim Corbett. It was launched in Jim Corbett, not in Kanha as such. Clear? It was launched in Jim Corbett, not in Kanha. Now, India's floating national park, Kabul Lamjaro National Park, which is situated in Bishnupur district of Manipur, is in which one, is a part of which one of the following lakes? The correct answer is what? The correct answer is 6 is A, that is Loktek. Loktek Lake. Fine, 6A, Loktek Lake. And the next question. Annamalai Sanctuary lying adjacent to Mudumalai has which one of the following species, not species, that has been typed wrongly, species that are exclusive to it? Now, we can see that both Nilgiri's langur and line-tailed macaw both are exclusive to it. Both are exclusive to it means that both are found in these this century only. Which one of the following areas are meant for protection of cultural diversity? That you know very well. And then you can tick, and that's called as what? That's called as biosphere reserves. Biosphere reserves. Clear? So, we can see for this the correct answer would be both A and B, because Nilgiri's langur and line-tailed macaw is both found in Annamalai. And which one of the following areas are meant for protection of cultural diversity? That's your biosphere reserves. Clear? Very good. Now let's solve another test also. One more test on what we have studied. See the first question. Consider the following statements and select the correct code. Biosphere reserves are the most comprehensive protected areas. Is that correct? Biosphere reserves are the most comprehensive protected areas. Now that's correct. Because within a biosphere reserve, more than one national park or more than one wildlife sanctuary can be present. So they are the most protected comprehensive areas. Consider the following. And second is what? Hotels and resorts can be established in eco-sensitive zone under regulation. Definitely. Why? Because they are a regulated activity. We have discussed that there are three types of activities in eco-sensitive zones. So that's a regulated activity. And as far as core zones are present in biosphere reserve only, wrong, because core zones are present in other protected areas also like national parks. So we can see 1 and 2 is the correct answer. So correct option is B. Fine. Sapna Rathore, Shashi, all right. B. Clear? Saurav, very good. B. Now second is what? Consider the following statements and select the correct code. The essential component of lichen is what? It is algae. Now that's wrong. Because the essential component of lichen would be fungus. See, the photosynthetic partner would vary, but the essential component fungus won't be varying, so it would be fungus. And as far as the second statement is concerned, the second statement is what? This is incorrect. We have said that fungus is the correct essential component. Serre is the process through which vegetation is established in an area. That's also wrong. Why? Because serre is the sequential manner through which vegetation is established. Sequential manner through which vegetation gets established. Pine is an example of opportunist plant. That's also wrong. Because pine is an example of what? It is an example of climax vegetation. Climax vegetation. So this is an example of climax vegetation, not an opportunist plant. Clear? So you can see none of the above would be the correct answer. Very good. Very good. Kalim Khan. Fine, Maitri. So all these. Sanjana, all correct answer. Which one of the following statement is incorrect? Now tell me which statement is incorrect for question number 3. You are having the question number 3 before you. Saurav, you got wrong. Okay, next time you will get correct. Yes, B is correct. Why? Identification of an ecosystem cannot be based on indicator species because sometimes it would be wrong. Sometimes definitely it would be wrong. So it cannot be based on indicator species only. Clear? And umbrella species can be flagship species definitely. All these are correct. But B is incorrect answer. Which one of the following? Now tell me this one. Question 4th. Which one of the following is the correct order of decreasing ecological productivity? And you know very well because we have discussed, I have written on the board also all these things. Swamps, coral reefs, river, oceans, estuaries, Tell me what should be the answer for question number 4. Now see, for the question number 4, 4 is A, yes, Nandini, correct. A, definitely, all are correct. Yes, because that has been written on the board also. We have discussed that 2,500 for swamps, 2,000 for coral reefs, 1,800 for estuaries and oceans, very less, 125 only. Clear? So that's the correct. A is the correct. Now, as far as the question 5th is concerned, I haven't taught you, but these two are the correct definitions of ecological productivity. That is, question number ecological footprint, not ecological footprint is the measure of amount of biological productivity land and water needed to supply a population with renewable sources. And we can see renewable sources and to absorb or dispose of water from such resource use. That's correct. Water footprint of an individual, community or business is believed to be the total volume of fresh water used to produce goods and services consumed by the individual or community or produced by the business. That's also true. Clear? That's also true. So both are correct options. Now, next question. Consider the following statements and select the correct code. Mutual interaction between biotic and abiotic component is responsible for determining genetic and species diversity. Now, see, mutual interaction will be responsible for determining both. That what kind of species would be present in that area and what can be the variation, genetic variation between them. But the second statement is wrong. That viruses, fungus, bacteria and algae are responsible for decomposition. Viruses are not responsible. Algae are not responsible. It's bacteria and fungus which would be responsible. So, only one would be the correct answer. Now, tell me, next question. Which one of the following statement related to ecotone is incorrect? Tell me the answer of 7th one. Mark 7th and say. Which one is the correct answer? Viruses are not responsible. Yes. Now, in this case, in the case of 7th one, which one of the following statement related to ecotone is incorrect? Now, incorrect is what? Mangrove can be considered as ecotone, but estuary cannot be. Estuary is an ecotone. Why? Because estuary is demarcating river ecosystem, a river ecosystem from marine ecosystem. So, that's a demarcation zone between river ecosystem and marine ecosystem. So, that's called as what? That's estuary. So, C would be correct. Now, which one of the following statement related to chemosynthesis is incorrect? Now, incorrect is what in 8? Question number 8, tell me. Yes, estuary is the ecotone of fresh water and saline water. Definitely, that's correct. C. Good. Which one of the following statement related to chemosynthesis is incorrect? Now, incorrect is what in case of 8? Incorrect is definitely C. Why? Because this process can be performed by algae. Not at all. It can be performed only and only by bacteria. Clear? It can be performed only and only by bacteria. Now, that's your test, 2 tests. Now, let's move forward and discuss some other issues and then again we'll conduct it. We'll have test. So, we'll continue like this. Continue like this. Fine. Now, before discussing, yes, correct was that, because it would be bacteria, it won't be algae as such. Yes, sort of. Maitri also right. Shashi, all correct answer. Shansi, that's not correct. C is the correct option. Now, Yes, chemosynthesis bacteria are the first to produce them. I have explained to you what the definition which has been given there is nothing but the definition which I have given. See, what is the definition? Amount of land See, what is the definition? First, ecological footprint is the measure of amount of biological productive land and water needed to supply a population with renewable sources it uses. Now, ecological footprint means what amount of land and what amount of water you would be using so that it can be maintained for future generation also. Clear? Water footprint of an individual or community is believed to be the total volume of fresh water used to produce goods and services consumed by individual or community or produced by their business. So, its water footprint is that what amount of water that you use for producing all goods and services that you are indulging in, but this would be only and only fresh water, not saline water as such. See, organic production would be taking place where? Organic production would be organic matter would be produced in photosynthesis or chemosynthesis. Inorganic matter is not produced in photosynthesis or chemosynthesis. Can you please start biotechnology as next topic so that we can do it in a better way and not in a hurry? See, we can start, but the thing is that we haven't completed. Now, what is carbon footprint? Carbon footprint means that suppose you are coming to the office, in office you are using air conditioner, you are coming through your own vehicles. Now, a certain, and also in home you are using air conditioner, electricity. So, a certain amount of emission would be attributed to you, that you are responsible for this. Now, this amount of emission which you are responsible would be called as what? It would be referred to as carbon footprint of yours. So, carbon footprint is per capita emission. Carbon footprint is per person emission of a person or individual or industrial unit also is called as per person emission. Clear? Now, we have been given a guideline first of all to complete all these and then only we will start with biotechnology. That is why I told you that we would be reaching midnight today. Clear? Because biotechnology also needs to be done in the same manner. Fine. And water footprint is that only that we have discussed to produce goods and whatever goods and services you produce. So, amount of fresh water which is required for that would be called as water footprint. That can be of an individual also, of a community also, or of a business organization also. Now, see, next thing that you have to know is there are two processes. One is called as what? One is called as phytoremediation. And second is called as what? Second is called as bioremediation. Phytoremediation and second is called as bioremediation. Clear? Bioremediation. And the thing is that the carbon footprint of India is very low when compared to that of the developed nation, 15 to 16 times low when compared to that of the developed nation as such. Now, phytoremediation is a process through which plants or trees are used for absorbing pollutants. They derive nutrition from them and they are responsible for discharging waste products which do not damage the environment in any way. I am saying that plants are used for absorbing pollutants. Vegetation is used for absorbing pollutants. So, they are absorbing the pollutants, they are deriving nutrition from them and they are discharging waste products which do not hamper the environment in any way. So, this kind of process is called as what? It is called as phytoremediation. See, phyto means what? Phyto means plant. Remediation means restoring balance. So if plants are used for restoring balance of an area, that would be called as phytoremediation. These kind of plants would be called as what? It would be called as hyperaccumulators. So the process is called as what? It's called as phytoremediation. But these kind of plants are referred to as hyperaccumulator, and their tendency, their characteristic of absorbing the pollutant, their characteristic of absorbing the pollutant is called as what? It is referred to as hypertolerance. So their tendency of absorbing the pollutant is called as what? It's called as hypertolerance. So three terms: phytoremediation, then we can see that hyperaccumulators and hypertolerance. And it's also performed by microorganisms. Some of the microorganisms have the ability to absorb contaminants. And when they absorb contaminants, they also discharge waste products which do not hamper the environment in any way. But this would be called as what? This would be called as bioremediation. Clear? This is referred to as what? It is referred to as bioremediation. So, if microorganisms are used, it is called as bioremediation. If phytoplanktons are used, it is called as what? If vegetation are used, then it is called as phytoremediation. Clear? First, but on these things they have asked you question. For example, they have asked you that in Namami Gange project also, phytoremediation was used for clearing the contaminants from river Ganga. So in Namami Gange project, phytoremediation has been used, and also we can see that bioremediation has been used in Namami Gange project, and bioremediation is also used for clearing oil spills. Bioremediation is also used for clearing oil spill. It has been used in the Chitra oil spill in the year 2010. There was Chitra oil spill near Mumbai. Now Chitra oil spill was cleared by the process of bioremediation only, in which a technology was used which was called as oil zapper technology. Oil zapper technology. But then we can see that also, not in this case, but in case of Namami Gange project also, Namami Gange project also, bioremediation has been used. Bioremediation has been used. Clear? So we can use bacteria also for removing oil spill, and that would be also process of bioremediation, and that would be called as, that bacteria is called as what? It's called as Pseudomonas. So in UPSC they have asked you about which kind of bacteria would be used for removing oil spill. So that's called as Pseudomonas.